The ICC orders a review of its Kenya non-cooperation decision. Rock climbers boost the economy of South Africa's Cedarburg Mountains. And the founder of Amazon.com defends his company following an unflattering New York Times report. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. We'll have those stories shortly. But first, South Africa's Oscar Pistorius will not be released on parole this Friday. The country's justice minister said a short time ago the decision to release him was made prematurely and without any legal basis. Justice Minister Makori on Tuesday said he was seeking legal advice on whether the parole board was right to release Pistorius on house arrest before serving a sixth of his 5-year sentence for killing his girlfriend. Pistorius, 29, was expected to be released after serving 10 months of a 5-year sentence for killing Riva Steenkamp, a model and a law graduate, on Valentine's Day 2013. Now, a panel of appeals judges at the International Criminal Court on Wednesday said trial judges will have to reconsider whether Kenya cooperated properly with prosecutors in the case of Kenya's President Uhuru Kenyatta. Prosecutors dropped charges of crimes against humanity against Mr. Kenyatta in December, maintaining they were unable to build their case because of obstruction by Kenyan authorities. Reading the appeals court decision, the presiding judge says trial judges had failed to consider some aspects of prosecutors' non-cooperation complaint and ordered them to review the decision.
The appeals chamber finds that these errors materially affected the trial chamber's decision not to refer the matter of Kenya's non-compliance. The appeals chamber is also of the view that these errors prevented the trial chamber from making a conclusive determination on the existence of a failure to comply with a request to cooperate by the court, which prevents the court from exercising its function and powers under the statute, as required by the first clause of Article 87(7) of the statute.
Well, President Kenyatta, the son of Kenya's founding father, Jomo Kenyatta, has said the charges were trumped up and politically motivated, and that prosecution allegations of intimidation or bribery of witnesses were a cover for prosecutors' incompetence. Well, the emergence of the Masina Liberation Front, MFL, a new jihadist group recruiting among central Mali's marginalized Fulani ethnic minority, is breeding panic among residents, forcing some officials to flee and undermine the efforts of a 10,000-strong UN peacekeeping mission to stabilize the West African state. Security experts fear that the rise of jihadist group among the Fulani, whose 20 million members are spread across Western Central Africa, could regionalize the violence. Meanwhile, Tuareg secessionists in Mali are blaming the United Nations for failing to secure a peace deal with the pro-government militia in the north after 3 days of fighting and a day before talks were due to start in Niger to ease tensions between the two sides.
My personal opinion is that MONUSMA didn't try to respect the ceasefires that were signed and also didn't try to find a solution to the militia problems because it was now the third or fourth time that the militants have violated the ceasefire. The population is worried about their security, but we concluded that MONUSMA cannot ensure security of the population.
Well, Mali is seeking to break a decade-long cycle of Tuareg uprisings, the most recent of which allowed Islamist groups some link to al-Qaeda to seize the desert north in 2012. A French-led intervention a year later scattered the Islamists but failed to eradicate them, and Islamist violence is once again on the rise and expanding further south. Well, now we're going to take a look at the challenges facing people with albinism in Africa. Esther, what do you have for us?
Well, Vincent, the plight of people with albinism across Africa remains a huge challenge. And in some cases, they're hunted down for their body parts, which are in turn used for ritual purposes. I spoke to one young woman from Kenya whose organization is making a difference for people just like her. Jane Waithera runs Positive Exposure Kenya, an organization whose aim is to improve the quality of life for persons with albinism in Africa. She says no African leader has come out to openly condemn the killings and atrocities committed on people with albinism.
We don't possess any supernatural power or any magical healings or anything of the sort that they hunt us down for.
In Tanzania, the problem is particularly dire, and for years people with albinism have been killed while many others have been maimed. Anganile Thompson is a journalist working with the Tanzanian Broadcasting Corporation. He says people with albinism encounter even more problems during election season.
For some strange reason, it does come to rise up during elections because there are some uninformed politicians who feel like using these body parts of people with albinism will give them more popularity, wealth.
Even though there have been rare cases of people with albinism killed in Kenya, Jane Waithera says her organization's work transcends the borders of the country, and she has personally seen people who have survived the violent attacks but were left without arms and legs.
I know the seriousness of the matter, and for me, my message back home is the killings and atrocities against persons with albinism have to stop now. I'm gonna get more aggressive and have policies around the topic.
Generally seen as a peaceful country in the East African region, the killing of albinos in Tanzania is negating that image. And as October's general elections draw near, people with albinism are frightened. Anganile Thompson says the violence against albinos is hurting Tanzania's image.
It's been very troubling times in my country, a very bad chapter. Generally Tanzania is a very peaceful country, but this has sort of given a negative view of the world towards Tanzania.
And at a recent presidential summit in Washington, D.C., U.S. President Barack Obama said the idea that a society would commit violence on people because of pigmentation is not a tradition worth preserving.
When I was in Africa, I said, there are important traditions and folkways that need to be respected. That's part of who each culture is, each country is. But there's also just foolish traditions and old ways of doing business that are based in ignorance. And they need to stop.
During the summit, Waithera requested President Obama to raise the issue with African heads of state to bring atrocities against persons with albinism to an end. And the president summed it up.
You are strong by taking care of the people who are vulnerable, by looking after the minority, looking after the disabled, looking after the vulnerable.
And as President Obama commented, we can preserve great traditions the world over like music, food, dance, language, and art. But if there's a tradition anywhere in the world that involves treating people differently because of who they are, then we ought to challenge it and ultimately do away with it. Now, governments across Africa where people with albinism are threatened need to come up with sound policies to protect them and prosecute those hunting them down for their body parts. Vincent?
Well, thank you, Esther. Now, going to West Africa, Senegal was largely able to avoid last year's Ebola epidemic in West Africa, recording only one case of the deadly virus. But even with the outbreak mostly contained, doctors say the country cannot let down its guard. VOA's Mariama Diallo recently visited Dakar and has our report.
At the Fan Hospital in Dakar, Dr. Moussa Seydi treated the only Ebola case in Senegal. He says the country needs to remain on alert.
Putting our guards down, not really, but there are a few failures since we solved the first case. You'll see that basic sanitary measures are being neglected because people used to wash their hands regularly and avoided certain acts, but now people are behaving like there's never been an Ebola case here.
For that reason, Senegal's health minister recently told VOA that officials will start a new campaign to remind people about the dangers of Ebola.
Because we want the people always to be careful and just to think that it is not over. They need to take care of themselves, how they are behaving for hygiene, but also the nutrition. It is not something we are doing a lot in Senegal, but sometimes in the south you have some people who are also eating some wild animals.
She says the country spent about $3.5 million of Senegalese and foreign donors' money in Ebola prevention efforts. And that was with only one case of the virus. Dr. Alioune Badarali is the co-coordinator of COUS, an emergency response center funded mostly by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
CDC's help came in many forms. First, it helped with training about 50 health workers with basic epidemiology lessons. CDC is also helping train a few of our doctors in field epidemiology.
Beyond Ebola, Dr. Lee says the country wants to make sure the Emergency Response Center has a more integrated surveillance system for diseases in human and animals and fully equipped laboratories. At the Fan Hospital, the unit that was set aside for Ebola cases has been reopened for regular use. But Dr. Seydi said they can set up an emergency response center with tents within 24 hours. Mariama Diallo, VOA News, Dakar, Senegal.
We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. And check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, a musical legend surprises fans with free pop-up concerts. Stay with us.
Health news and notes. This is Living Better.
A heat wave in the Middle East is being blamed for dozens of deaths in Egypt and sending hundreds of people to the hospital. Jordan, too, is feeling the heat. This worker in Amman says he's reworked schedules because of the weather.
We work in the morning, rest at noon, then continue our job at night.
Extreme summer weather poses serious health risks. So to keep safe, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention suggests preparedness as its #1 tip, especially if you're caring for children, older adults, or those with chronic medical conditions. Make sure they can get to a cooler area on a hot day. The CDC also warns not to leave children or pets inside of a car on a hot day. When it's parked in the sun, temperatures can soar to 55 to 78 degrees Celsius. Earlier this year in India, more than 2,000 people died in a stifling heat wave. More than 1,000 died in Pakistan. I'm Philip Alexio for VOA's Living Better.
Well, a 9-year-old girl has launched her own war against terrorism in Nigeria. Splendid Joy Bishoy is perhaps the most popular 9-year-old Nigerian writer in the country today. She recently authored a book on terrorism in which she shares details of conversations with children displaced by violence in the country's north. Splenda encountered the children while on a trip to a camp earlier in the year, where they told her about the difficult experiences they faced at the hands of Boko Haram Islamist militants. Those stories inspired the 32-page book titled Effects of Terrorism on Children.
I was influenced to write this book because of the happenings around us and the fact that the terrorists we see today were once children like us. And if they were properly educated on this subject, they may not have ended up as terrorists.
Boko Haram has been trying to carve out a state adhering to strict Sharia in the country's northeast since 2009. The group has killed thousands of people and displaced 1.5 million. Last year, Boko Haram abducted more than 200 girls from a secondary school in a village near the Cameroon border, sparking a worldwide outcry. Most of the girls have remained in captivity ever since. The young author says she wanted to do her bit to help in the fight against the violence. She, however, admits that writing the book and balancing her daily routine was not easy.
The challenges that I faced in writing this book is going to school, my schoolwork, and also writing the book.
Splendor wants her book to be used in the fight against terrorism by distributing it in all internally displaced people's camps and various schools in the country to educate children on the dangers of terrorism and why they should not join militant groups. During one of her many book promotions recently, Splendor presented her book to Fatima Akilu, who heads Nigeria's de-radicalization program at the Office of National Security.
I think you are a role model in that respect. We will do our very best to see that we promote your book and to help you in any way we can on your other endeavors, your foundation. I hope that you continue, because I can see that you're going to be a great Nigerian.
The UN Children's Agency, UNICEF, says about 800,000 children have been forced to flee the violence in Nigeria. Splendor is worried that many children are still at risk of being kidnapped or conscripted by armed groups like Boko Haram. She wants to see her country do more to protect them and at the same time get more people educated on how they can help fight terrorism wherever they live. Now, about a 3-hour drive north of Cape Town, South Africa, there's an area called Cederberg Mountain, which is known mostly for its production of rooibos tea. But over the last 10 years, it has also gained attention for another economy-boosting activity, that's rock climbing. As Emily Eob reports, it's now considered one of the world's top 10 destinations for the bouldering form of rock climbing, and it's attracting climbers from around the world.
The unique landscapes of South Africa's Cederberg Mountains have long attracted tourists coming to hike, see the wildflowers, or learn more about the production of rooibos tea. But over the past few years, it has seen an influx of visitors coming for something else, rock climbing. An area north of the mountain range, aptly named Rocklands, is made up of thousands of boulders and rock spanning more than 20 square kilometers. In the past decade, it has become a premier spot for bouldering, a form of rock climbing performed relatively close to the ground, without ropes and with mattresses to cushion falls. Petra Klingler of Switzerland is here for a month. She's a professional boulderer who just won a world championship.
You have everything here, steep, flat, and from the grades you have like boulders from easy to really hard boulders. Also, what's really nice is that climbers from the whole world come here and meet and exchange boulder problems, solution for a boulder problem.
Hundreds of climbers from around the world come to Rockland every year. Many stay at nearby farms which have open campsites, cabins and stalls. Most climbers stay between 1 and 3 months. Mattis Kruger bought his farm 10 years ago as a weekend destination for his family. But after visitors began asking if they could climb the boulders on his property, he turned his guest farm into a place to accommodate the climbers and now lives here full-time.
When we bought the farm, the main activity around the valley was subsistence farming and small-scale vegetable farming. And that absolutely, totally, 100% changed. Where we are at the moment in this valley, every single farm in this valley's main source of income is tourism, and it's climbing-driven tourism.
Kruger estimates that climbers bring about $1 million to the local economy every year. About 20 kilometers down the valley, the sleepy town of Clanwilliam is also feeling the impact of the climbers, who come to buy permits to climb in a nature reserve.
I think our businesses really benefit from it. Specifically, I think your supermarkets where they buy the food. I think a lot of the restaurants as well.
More than 700 climbers came to the area last year. Mattis Kruger says the number is increasing by 20% a year and he expects the growth to continue. Emily Eob for VOA News in Clanwilliam.
Well, all portable electronic communication devices require regular access to an energy source, which can be a problem for soldiers in the field. The U.S. Army is testing a new device that harvests energy from even the slightest breeze. VOA's George Putich tells us more.
Solar chargers are effective only when the sunlight is relatively strong, but researchers at the Construction Engineering Research Laboratory in Illinois turned to the wind as another natural source of power often present in open spaces. 4 months of constant measuring in an open field showed that during evening hours, 70% of average wind speed was less than or equal to 3 meters per second. Too slow for a wind turbine, but enough to make a light strip of fabric flutter.
What has resulted is a innovative prototype with which to generate electricity at remote locations for very low wind situations.
The Flutter Mallard portable sustainable electrical generation device has flexible strips affixed to pickup coils with magnets that convert the vibrating energy into electrical charge. A special challenge was the design of an electronic device that can turn the constantly changing wind speed and therefore varying power into a steady electric current. But that was not the only problem researchers had to tackle.
A concurrent effort for the storage side of it, remember it was integrated generation and storage, was the development as well of some supercapacitor technology for the purposes of storing electrical power that resulted in a number of publications and also a second patent disclosure.
Many engineering students from the University of Illinois participated in the project. The device generates about 3 watts of power. The researchers are now experimenting with strips made of flexible photovoltaic cells that could serve as additional sources of energy during the day. George Putic, VOA News, Washington.
Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54, a titan of online retail takes on the New York Times. We'll be right back.
If you've just joined us, I'm Mariama Diallo, and here is a quick recap of today's headlines. In Guinea-Bissau, some 1,000 marchers called for the reinstatement of the prime minister who was sacked in a power struggle with the country's president. The International Criminal Court will have to reconsider whether Kenya cooperated properly with prosecutors in the case of President Uhuru Kenyatta. In the Central African Republic, the United Nations reaffirms its commitment to investigate allegations of sexual abuse and excessive use of force by peacekeepers. Finally, in South Africa, Oscar Pistorius is to be released from prison to house arrest Friday after serving 10 months of a 5-year sentence for killing his girlfriend, Riva Steenkamp. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. Amazon.com founder Jeff Bezos is firing back at the New York Times. The Times story, based on more than 100 interviews with current and ex-employees, describes a corporate culture with long hours, backstabbing employees, and a callous approach to staff, including those suffering health problems, among other things. Bezos says the article doesn't describe the Amazon I know or the caring Amazonians I work with every day. Now, the Times story spread like wildfire on social media, with hashtag Inside Amazon trending on Twitter. Amazon is the largest online retailer in the U.S. Well, next up, want to know what music President Obama is listening to? Well, check Spotify. The White House released 2 music sets hand-created by the President of the United States for daytime and evening listening as part of the launch of a new channel on the popular music streaming service. Obama's music selections contain a wide variety of artists, including Beyoncé, Justin Timberlake, Aretha Franklin, and the Rolling Stones. Well, next up, a lost child has a big adventure. Now, this charity rugby league match between the Queensland and New South Wales Legends was interrupted earlier this month when a toddler wandered onto the pitch. When the New South Wales players noticed the 4-year-old, they passed him the ball and sent him scurrying towards the try line. And the kid was helped over the line to score a try, but his goal kicking must improve if he is to keep his place. And of course, the video has gone viral, and that is what is trending today. Well, now, popular American musician Stevie Wonder has offered his fans a rare treat this summer, appearing in free open-air concerts in several large cities on the East Coast. Zlatsa Hoke reports the pop-up concerts in Washington, Philadelphia, and New York were organized on the spur of the moment.
A Monday night concert in New York's Central Park drew hundreds of Stevie Wonder fans and revelers who enjoy open-air concerts.
This is amazing. Well, everybody always wants to listen to Stevie Wonder, and everybody always wants to go to Central Park. And to combine the two like this...
Earlier in the day, Stevie Wonder performed some of his most popular songs in Philadelphia and Washington, D.C. Incredulous fans rushed to the concerts announced at the last minute.
I was on my way to work, and I was listening to 102.3, and they said that Stevie Wonder was going to be here, free concert starting at 10 o'clock. I called in late, and here I am.
The main purpose of the pop-up concerts was to announce the extension of the singer's successful tour into the fall season.
I decided to do 20 more performances. These will be the final performances of the Songs in the Key of Life performance in the United States.
Stevie Wonder is one of the top-selling U.S. music artists. He is also a political activist.
If you have a gun and you shoot it, and you claim it with your name and the fact that you did it, you know, you have to do certain things to own a car, so why not something that can determine a person's life or death?
The concerts were also a way of thanking his longtime faithful fans.
I think he's one of the most influential artists that are alive in our time.
Stevie Wonder has recorded more than 30 top 10 U.S. hits and received 25 Grammy Awards, more than any other male solo artist, and has sold over 100 million albums and singles. Zlatsa Hoke, VOA News, Washington.
Well, that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight at 1800 UTC and in the mornings. Today, Break Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching. From all of us in Washington, have a good night.
Music is something that brings people together.
Music educates, it motivates, it's a bridge.
Music. Ali.
On
VOA.
I am Sheikh Sali, host and senior editor of VOA's international call-in talk show, Straight Talk Africa. The issues that we discuss are pertinent to most people on the African continent.
The quest for the freedom to vote saw many struggles.
We were murdered for the right to vote.
Many triumphs.
It's unleashed the talent, the dreams, and the inspiration of millions of Americans.
Yet the fight continues.
I'm very disappointed because, you know, we worked so hard in so many years and we've seen the injustice.
A 4-part special report, The Freedom to Vote, The Last 50 Years, only on VOA.